3 girls, 1 night, and a crime scene so badly handled that the truth may never be officially confirmed. On June 12, 1977, Lori Lee Farmer, age 8, Michelle Heather Goss, age 9, and Doris Denise Milner, age 10, arrived at Camp Scott in Mays County, Oklahoma. First night of summer camp, sleeping bags, ghost stories, maybe a little homesickness. By morning, all 3 were gone. And the investigation that followed? A masterclass in how not to solve a murder. 10 critical moments that built this case, broke this case, and left it permanently, infuriatingly open. Number 1. The warning nobody took seriously. Less than 2 months before the murders, a counselor discovered her belongings ransacked and her donuts stolen. Inside the empty box was a handwritten note in capitals. "We are on a mission to kill 3 girls in Tent 1. The director treated it as a prank and threw it away. A death threat in a donut box thrown in the trash." Number 2. The campsite layout that made Tent 8 a target. The 3 girls were assigned to Tent 8 at the farthest edge of the Kiowa campsite, secluded, partially hidden, at the most isolated edge of 410 wooded acres. Whoever entered that night knew exactly where to go. Number 3. The thunderstorm that corrupted everything. That evening, the girls sheltered from a storm in Tent 8. That same storm hit the crime scene before investigators arrived. Rain doesn't just fall, it washes, it moves, it destroys. Nature had already started editing the scene. Number 4. The counselor who heard something in the dark. The morning after, the bodies were found by a counselor who had walked the grounds the previous night after being awakened by a strange sound, then went back to bed. She couldn't have known, but that detail haunts this case forever. Number 5. The discovery at the trail. Around 6 in the morning, a counselor spotted what appeared to be a sleeping bag near the tent sites. The girls were found on a trail toward the showers, roughly 150 yards from their tent, strangled, struck with blunt force, sexually assaulted. Tape, rope, a gag, and a flashlight were recovered. Goose and Farmer had been killed inside the tent. Milner had been taken into the woods. Right here is where you have to ask yourself, if you were a detective standing at that trail in the early morning light of June 13th, 1977, do you wait for forensics or do you move fast? Comment your answer below, because the choice investigators made next changed everything. Number 6. The chaotic crime scene. Intense pressure to identify a suspect quickly, storm damage, and crowds trampling through the camp created a chain of custody nightmare. Fingerprints on the flashlight and a partial boot print were collected, but defense attorneys would later tear the evidence apart piece by piece. Number 7. Jean Leroy Hart. Hart had escaped prison in 1973 with a history of sexual violence, convicted of kidnapping and raping 2 pregnant women and 4 counts of first-degree burglary. He was raised about a mile from Camp Scott, a convicted rapist, living a mile from the crime scene, on the run 4 years. If this were a screenplay, an editor would cut it for being too on the nose. Number 8. The evidence that should have been enough and wasn't. Biological evidence showed only 0.002% of the population matched its unique characteristics, including Hart. His defense argued the hair found on duct tape at the scene wasn't his, raised accusations of racial profiling, and called the case circumstantial. The prosecution had science, the defense had doubt, racial tension, and a jury from the same county as Jean Leroy Hart. Number 9. The alternate suspect. The defense accused the sheriff of planting evidence and pointed to William Stevens, a convicted rapist. A scout testified she'd seen Stevens at camp before the murders. Witnesses said the flashlight found at the scene had been loaned to Stevens weeks earlier, and that he'd appeared at their home after the killings, with scratches on his arms and neck. In a courtroom, that is a hand grenade. Number 10. The acquittal and the aftermath. Hart's trial began March 19th, 1979. On March 30th, the jury acquitted him. 2 months later, Hart died of a heart attack in prison, maintaining his innocence. Then, in 2022, advanced DNA testing publicly announced a strong link between the biological evidence and Hart, ruling out other suspects. Officially, though, the case has never been solved. Nobody has ever been convicted. 3 girls. 1 suspect who died acquitted. 1 warning note thrown in the trash. 1 crime scene battered by a storm and overwhelmed by pressure. Every crack was there from the very first morning, and not one has ever been fully sealed. If this case gripped you, hit subscribe because we're just getting started on the cases that broke the system and never got fixed. The truth is out there somewhere on a trail in Mays County, Oklahoma, and somebody knows exactly where it leads.